When so-called Islamic State captured Mosul in June 2014, it proclaimed a caliphate. It used the city as the staging ground for an unprecedented information war, one to inspire attacks across the world. But Sky News has learned that as the so-called caliphate has shrunk in Iraq, so has the digital version, by 36% over 2 years, according to an analysis of IS's secret communication channels. That doesn't mean its propaganda is any less deadly, though, as the Westminster attack shows. Instead, it has adapted.
For Islamic State, propaganda is everything. If you look at its actions through the lens of propaganda, it all begins to make sense. Their most atrocious acts, their most counterintuitive operations, they all suddenly begin to fall into place. It's all about ideology, perpetuating that ideology. And in that sense, propaganda and terrorism are one and the same thing for the Islamic State.
In 2015, during February, IS put out 892 pieces of propaganda: photos, videos, written reports and audio. The corresponding month this year, though, IS put out only 570 pieces online, a drop of more than a third. And the type of content has changed. In 2015, IS didn't focus on beheadings or jihad. 53% of their output was dedicated to depicting IS as a utopia. Only 39% was about war. This year, those swapped. As coalition forces moved in, 80% of IS's output was about jihad and only 14% about utopia. Sources in UK counter-terrorism confirm that the quantity and quality of IS propaganda has declined, but that their focus has shifted to lone wolf attacks. This London startup uses tech to counter those messages.
What needs to be done to a certain extent to counter ISIS and Daesh is to mimic their tactics, to actually identify individuals that are vulnerable and engage in one-to-one conversations with those individuals. It's hard work, but with modern technology it can be done. And the only way we're ever going to really turn the tide on this is if we start to do that kind of hard work in the digital space in the exact same way the extremists are doing it.
Islamic State has always used technology to spread its message. It used to be Twitter and YouTube, thousands of videos. But when it was forced off those platforms, it was very quick to embrace secret, encrypted messaging apps like Telegram. That means it doesn't reach such a mass audience, but the people it does reach are a lot more determined and a lot more difficult for the security services to spot.
The attack on Westminster was much less elaborate than the ones, like Paris and Brussels, directed by IS itself. But it shows the reach of the group, a reach that will outlast the so-called caliphate. Tom Cheshire, Sky News.